Hey everybody, welcome back to the Body Mass YouTube page. It's Virginia here, and I am taking you guys along on my journey as I get ready to step on stage postpartum. So I'm almost 5 months postpartum, and my goal in 2022 was just to step on stage, to get back out there, not really have any expectations in terms of how I place or what I qualify for, to just get there and enjoy the journey, work hard towards a fitness goal. So I'm excited that I've been bringing you guys along on this adventure. So in today's video, there are three main things that I want to go over. The first is my most recent DEXA scan that I did just 2 days ago. So I want to go over the numbers on that and kind of show you guys what my results are and where I'm at currently. The second thing is I want to walk you through a little bit of what my day-to-day nutrition looks like when I'm in prep, and then compare that to what it looks like when I'm eating on a normal day, what a normal healthy way of eating would be, and then what I would eat in my off season when I'm being a little bit more lax with my nutrition. And finally, I want to let you guys in on a little secret with what's changing with my competition plan. So stuff is a little bit different than the last video and that I've been anticipating, but I'm really excited about. So stay tuned. At the very end, I'll fill you in on what we're doing. All right, so I'm back here at Body Mass. Obviously, you guys know I am getting ready for another DEXA scan. I'm doing this more as informative data, as you guys have kind of seen throughout the prep. This is my first time stepping on stage in 1.5 years. It is my first time postpartum. My goal is to just compete. I just want to get on stage and just see how the outcome is. I'm not overly pressed on how I place, how I do. I'm not looking to win. I'm not looking for national qualification. I'm just looking to have the experience of stepping on stage and knowing that I can do it postpartum. So here goes the DEXA. All right, we're gonna get started with the DEXA numbers. So DEXA scans are a way I've been tracking my body composition and my progress for over 8 years. Every prep that I do, I'm able to see exactly where I'm building muscle, exactly where I'm losing fat, and basically seeing what do those numbers from a very objective standpoint look like against my pictures and what I look like subjectively. So how do we put quantifiable objective data of a DEXA scan with something that's a subjective sport like bodybuilding? I can say now when the judge's feedback is I need to have more muscle here or I need to be leaner here, I can go back, I can look exactly what my numbers are, and then I can start chasing numbers. I can start to quantify what it is I'm looking to achieve in an aesthetic versus just hoping and wishing for things to look different but not necessarily knowing if they are. So I'm going to be sharing data from 3 very specific DEXA scans that I've done. Number 1, of course, is going to be most recently that I did 2 days ago on April 9th. So I'll have that data. The next scan is going to be the scan that I did most previous to that, which was on February 23rd, and that was 6.5 weeks ago. So at that point, I was kind of starting to work with my coach, getting in the groove of prep, but I hadn't really hit it hard with prep yet. So what did my progress look like in the last 6.5 weeks of being on prep? And finally, what did my data look like 2 days out from the last time I stepped on stage? So I stepped on stage in 2 shows. I did a local show in late August, and then early September I did North Americans in 2020, so about 18 months ago. And I did a DEXA scan 2 days before that show, the Capital Grand Prix. So I'm going to also compare numbers to the show when I did the Capital Grand Prix. 5 main points I'm going to be looking at. Number 1 is total percent body fat. What is my percent body fat on a whole? How many pounds of fat mass do I have? So that is both subcutaneous, which is surface level, as well as visceral, which is mixed in with your organs. Pounds of lean mass, which is basically anything besides bone and fat. So yes, that's muscle. It also includes your blood volume. It includes water that you store in the muscle and other cells. It includes organs. So that number postpartum, if you guys have watched previous videos, has really fluctuated a lot, and I've kind of broken down why I think that is. In addition, two numbers that are going to be very relevant for any competitor, but especially in the bikini division. Number one is android. So that's going to be your midsection, kind of the base of the ribs to the top of the pelvis. So what is the percent fat in my android? And then gynoid, what is the percent fat in my hips and butt? So from the base of the pelvis to the midpoint of my thighs, what percent fat am I there? So I'm going to be looking at my 3 DEXA scans, looking at total body fat percentage, pounds of fat, pounds of lean mass, android percent fat, and gynoid percent fat. So in my most recent DEXA scan that I just did 2 days ago, I am at 12.4% body fat. So that's great. I'm very excited about that. That's something that is an ideal number for me to be at as I get ready to step on stage. So current body fat percentage is at 12.4%. 6.5 weeks ago, on my most recent DEXA scan, I was at 17.4%. So I'm down 5% body fat, which is great. That's what I kind of expect to happen during prep. So I'm excited about that. And then when I took my DEXA scan 2 days before my last show in 2020, I was at 11.8%. So I'm only about 0.5% higher right now than I was 2 days before my last show. So that's something I am super stoked about. I'm very excited to be at that point. There's definitely some tweaks and changes that I want to make with my physique, but in terms of overall body fat percentage, I'm very proud of where I'm at right now. When we look at pounds of fat mass as a whole on the body, I currently have 16.6 pounds of fat mass. About 6.5 weeks ago, I was at 24.2. So in the last 6.5 weeks, the last month and a half or so, I've lost, almost 8 pounds of fat. Coming from tightening up my nutrition, coming from focusing on getting more cardio and being more active throughout the day, and being more consistent with my strength training. So down almost 8 pounds of fat in the last 6.5 weeks, which is a good point prep-wise. The last show I did 2 days before, I was at 15.2 pounds of fat mass 2 days out. So I'm about 1.5 pounds more of fat than I was 2 days out from a show, but I'm not 2 days out from a show, so I'm totally okay with these numbers and where they're at, and I'm excited. Lean mass, where I'm at right now, is 117.3. 6 weeks ago, I was at 115, so I'm up 2.5 pounds of lean mass. I'm going to really chalk that 2.5 pounds of lean mass gain up to increases in muscle mass. Postpartum, immediately postpartum, I had big fluctuations in my lean mass, but a lot of that was coming from fluid retention. So how much fluid I retained after giving birth, breastfeeding, and how those hormones are kind of affecting those fluid levels in my body. So I'm going to give a good amount of that to lean mass, a good amount of that lean mass to muscle gain coming from being consistent with my training, which I'm proud of, and I've been consistent 5 days a week since I've started really this prep 6.5 weeks ago. And then before my last show, I was 113.8. So I'm actually up almost 4 pounds of lean mass from where I was at that previous show. I do believe I have more muscle mass. I also know that my fluid levels are up a little bit, and that gets read as lean mass instead of fat mass. So some small changes, but overall, I'm really, really proud of where I've come since starting prep with focusing on fat loss, increasing lean mass to decrease my body fat percentage to be really not that far off from where I was 2 days out from the last time I stepped on stage. As we look at android numbers, that belly, I'm at 5.8% in my android. previously, 6.5 weeks ago, I was at 12.7. So that was kind of the highest I'd been in a while. But I'm down to what I would consider my competition level Android percent fat. Before my last show, I was at 5.9. So I'm about where I was 2 days out from my last show. I won't get any leaner than that down in my Android. That's really the leanest I've ever seen anybody in their Android is maybe the high fours. These are pro level bodybuilders. So at 5.8, I'm at a good steady holding point for my Android for that midsection. My gynoid, hips and butt, I'm at 15.0% fat. I was previously, 6 weeks ago, at 21.4. So I'm down 6.5% in my hips and glutes, which is good. Still want to be a little bit tighter in through there as I get ready to step on stage, but I'm really happy with that progress. Previously, when I stepped on stage, I was at 12.5%. So still a little bit higher than where I was at that last show, but overall, really excited, really proud of these DEXA results. I can't wait to see as they continue to change a little bit more as I get ready to step on stage. All right, so switching gears a little bit, we're gonna talk more about nutrition and how my nutrition changes from off season, where I'm flexible with my nutrition, not tracking anything, to when I'm trying to just focus on being a little bit healthier and make wiser decisions, to being on prep and being much more regimented with my nutrition. I wanna talk about a couple different aspects of food throughout the day. Number one is my coffee that I drink, what kind of choices I make with my coffee drinks, both at home and when I'm out and about. The next thing I want to talk about is my breakfast and kind of how I alter and change my breakfast, still within the same types of food and the same flavors, but little changes that I make as I'm trying to get healthier, and then as I go into prep, as well as my dessert. So you guys probably know by now I have a really big sweet tooth. So my dessert kind of cravings stay throughout prep, but I tweak them a little bit and I change them a little bit as time goes on, as I get closer and closer to show. For lunch and dinner, I don't change anything that much. Typically, my lunches and dinners consist of lots of lean protein, lots of vegetables, some complex carbs coming from sweet potatoes and rice. So yes, I measure when I'm in prep and I'm maybe a little bit more specific with exactly what's going on those foods, but it's not too drastically different. Of course, when I'm in my off season, I go out to eat a lot more. And when I'm doing that, I'm not, making a conscious effort on what type of food I'm specifically getting. But those foods don't change too much. So we're gonna talk about my coffee choices, my breakfast choices, and my dessert choices. All right, power to anybody who drinks black coffee. I love coffee. I cannot drink black coffee. Literally the only time I drink black coffee is maybe the morning of a show if I'm really needing some caffeine. But black coffee just does not cut it for me. So when I'm in my off season and I'm at home, I like to make kind of my own homemade lattes. So I'll use that Chobani coffee creamer. You guys saw in the previous video that I use that. Heat it up a little bit and then pour in an espresso shot, or an espresso, I guess it would be a shot, from the Nespresso pod. And I blend it with one of those little hand frothers to make kind of an at-home latte. So that's kind of my off-season go-to. When I'm trying to be a little bit healthier at home with my coffee, I keep it about the same. I don't really do anything too drastic. But when I'm on prep, I switch out the creamer for oat milk and I use a much smaller quantity. So I use like a plain oat milk or sometimes almond milk. It's not nearly as delicious. It's not as sweet tasting. It's not sweet tasting at all. So it's a little bit sad, but that's what I switch it out for. The week of a show, I will start to scale it back even more, just using less and less of that oat milk or almond milk. A lot of times I'll drink tea instead, just plain without anything additional in it. And day of a show, if I'm really craving something, some caffeine, I need some caffeine pick-me-up, I'll do black coffee, but like I said, not my choice. So at home, my coffee doesn't change too drastically. I just kind of switch from creamer to oat milk. When I go out to get coffee, that's a big difference. So my go-to order anywhere I go is a small hot mocha. Even when it's warm out, I always prefer a hot mocha. I don't know, sipping on something hot. I don't know, it just feels good. I like it. When I'm in my off season, when I'm not tracking, I'll drink whole milk. So I just have them make it with whole milk. When I'm starting to want to get a little bit healthier, make more of a conscious decision with what I'm drinking, coffee-wise, I'll do something like a oat milk, or I'll do something with skim milk, but it'll still be a mocha because I love the chocolatey flavor. I hope you guys like mochas as much as I do. Maybe I'm the anomaly, I don't know. I could live my whole life off of mochas. And then when I'm getting real serious into prep, if I'm ordering coffee out, it usually ends up being coffee with just a little bit of cream. Maybe I'll do like a sugar-free vanilla latte, kind of depending on where my macros are at for the day and how far out I'm out from the show. But I say goodbye to mochas, which is the saddest part of all. So that's a pretty significant that I change that I make when I'm in prep when it comes to getting coffee out. So one of my favorite breakfast go-tos is eggs and grits. Like I said, you guys watched the last video, you kind of saw that. So normally when I'm not in prep, when I'm in my off season, I'll make grits. I don't really measure how much I do, maybe like a half a cup of dry grits. And then I will sprinkle sharp cheddar cheese in with that, and it melts in and makes cheesy grits, which is really, really good. And then I'll do like 3 or 4 whole eggs. So that's typically my breakfast when I'm in my off season, is 3 or 4 whole eggs mixed in with cheesy grits. So good, I love that. As I'm trying to get a little bit more on the healthier end of the spectrum, what I'll do is I'll take the cheese out, which is kind of sad, but I'll take the cheese out and I'll usually do 1 whole egg and then a few egg whites to cut down on the fat that's in the yolk a little bit, but still keep some protein from the egg whites. And then sometimes I'll do something like a little bit of a sriracha mayo or something that gives it a little bit of kick and a little bit of flavor. As I get into prep, I go just to egg whites. So I'll do a full cup of liquid egg whites and then a 1/4 cup of oatmeal. I just put salt and pepper on the egg whites, and then I mix in my egg whites with my, I said oatmeal, I mean grits. I'll mix my egg whites in with my grits, and then I'll put some hot sauce on that. So it's just hot sauce, egg whites with salt and pepper, and grits. So that is my go-to breakfast when I'm on prep. Again, it's not far off from what I'm at my off season, but I'm just cutting down on the caloric value and especially the fat intake by switching whole eggs for egg whites and by eliminating some of the cheese and just using hot sauce as my condiment. And for dessert, you guys know that I am a huge dessert junkie. I could eat ice cream every day. I think I ate ice cream every single day of my pregnancy. I just have a small bowl. I'm not getting some massive sundae, but as you can tell by my mochas and my ice cream, I've got a sweet tooth. So in my off season, it's ice cream. Always Double Dunkers from Turkey Hill is the best. It's like a coffee-based ice cream with cookie dough and Oreo swirls. Double Dunkers, by far the best. But when I'm trying to get a little healthier, I will make my protein ice cream. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen my protein ice cream before. I'll take a blender. I have one of the NutriBullets. I'll fill it with crushed ice, put in a scoop of protein powder, and then I'll usually use like chocolate almond milk or chocolate oat milk to make it more of a chocolatey, creamy texture. I'll put in chocolate chips and a little bit of peanut butter. So it still kind of gives me that cool, frothy crunch that I like from a real ice cream, but makes it a healthier option. When I'm in prep, I don't get as much of all that good stuff. What I'll do is I will do crushed ice and a scoop of protein powder. And then depending on where I'm at, I'll do just like a plain oat milk. So that's kind of my typical go-to. But as I get closer and closer to a show, I'll just switch out the oat milk for water. So it's not quite as creamy and as rich as an oat milk or the chocolate oat milk or almond milk, but it still gives me that kind of sweet fix and that cold, frothy taste that I like out of ice cream. So that is kind of my main dessert switch. So those are just a few changes that I make during prep to my nutrition where I can still eat something that gives me similar flavors and similar textures, but just kind of changes it up a little bit to help me focus on fat loss as I work towards my goals. So as you guys know, I've been planning to compete on June 11th, and that show, the last time that I talked, I think I was, I don't know, maybe a handful of weeks out, like 12 weeks out or so. I have decided to way move up the show that I'm doing. So I will be competing in less than 2 weeks on April 23rd at the Max Muscle in Woodbridge, Virginia. So that is a huge surprise and a huge shocker. But that's why looking at my DEXA numbers, it's interesting to see where I'm at 2 weeks out compared to 2 days out for my last show that I did. The main reason that I'm switching is I'm really trying to find balance in life as it relates to being a parent, seeing family, working, enjoying life, having time with my friends, and competing. Most of the local shows that are taking place this year conflict with other events that I have scheduled. My sister's getting married this year, so between showers, bachelorette parties, her wedding in Minneapolis, travel's a lot tougher. We also are planning to go on vacation now that we have a baby and things are a little different. We want to take her on vacations. So there's very few dates that actually work with my calendar. The show that's on June 11th, I still can do. However, the 4 weekends leading up to it, I have my sister's bachelorette party, 2 weekends in Costa Rica, and a girls' trip to Napa. So not the most conducive environments for staying on prep. If I still choose to compete in that show, I can stay on plan, but I don't necessarily know if I want to. So I want to be able to make sure I can step on stage in 2022. When I talked with my coach, he was totally on board with me doing the show on April 23rd. And again, my goal isn't to win. My goal isn't to qualify for nationals. My goal is to just get out there, enjoy time on stage, and hug my little girl after and show her down the line, look what your mom did when you were only 5 months old. So that's my goal. I'm really looking forward to it. If you guys are local in the area, if you're going to be at the Max Muscle show, let me know. I'd love to have you guys kind of cheer me on. Having more people cheering for you in the audience always makes a difference when you're on stage. But I'm so eager. Right now I'm exactly 12 days out, so I will bring you guys along as we continue this journey of prepping, stepping on stage, and what it looks like in the life of a mom. Good morning. So it is Monday, April 11th, and I am just under 2 weeks out now from my first show. I'm excited to be competing a little bit earlier and going into this whole process not feeling a lot of stress about how I place or how I qualify. I'm just excited to be back and getting on stage. So the baby is still asleep right now. And so since she's sleeping right now, I got up, I am pumping, I'm having my coffee. All right, we're here getting closer and closer to show day, which means it's very important that I get in my cardio. But obviously that looks super different with Chris being at work. I'm going for walks with the baby, and it is very cold this morning. Even though it's April 11th, it is 37 degrees. So sometimes that just means bundling us up in my jacket and going for a nice long early morning walk. So prep looks very different these days. This is what my form of cardio is, but I love it because I get to spend time with my baby and still get in what I need to do to compete. So I also want to address some of the challenges of this prep. So this prep obviously has been unlike any other prep that I've done before. So biggest challenges, there's two. The first one obviously being the time constraint of not being able to work out when I want to necessarily or how I want to necessarily, before having a baby. It was like, if I had to go to the gym and spend this much time there, that's what I would do. Now, a lot of my cardio sessions, ideal would be, my 60-minute prescribed incline treadmill walk. It becomes strapping the baby onto me and walking around the neighborhood or throwing her in the stroller and walking around. So it's not as ideal, but it still works. Sometimes my workouts at the gym, I just don't have time to get through everything before I have to feed the baby or before my husband has to get to work. So I have to relieve him from watching the baby. So there's definitely the constraint on time that's been a little bit of a challenge, but probably the biggest challenge overall is the fact that I'm still breastfeeding. And because I'm still breastfeeding, a few things. Obviously, number one, my hormones are different now than they typically are when I'm not breastfeeding. I'm not necessarily sure how that relates to my physique quite yet. I'd be curious to start to see how that changes. DEXA numbers give a little insight. But the other thing is that I'm not taking any supplements. And when I say supplements, I mean anything that's going to help really improve my physique on stage. I take protein powder and vitamins, but in terms of any type of fat burner. So other than 2012, which was the very first year I competed, it's a fun little picture if you guys want to see what I looked like back in 2012 competing in figure. Other than back then, I have always taken various fat burners in some degree or capacity, whether I was competing in figure or whether I was competing in bikini. So even as we looked at those DEXA numbers, for my last show, I was taking Core Burn, which is Core Nutritional's fat burner, and that was helping me get my results. Right now, I am not taking any type of fat burner whatsoever. I'm having really only 1.5, sometimes 2 cups of coffee a day, keeping my caffeine intake relatively low, so I'm not even drinking any energy drinks or anything like that. So that is it's a whole new level of challenge that I'm facing during this prep. So just because there's things that are different and things that are more challenging, it doesn't mean that I can't still prep and I can't still, get on stage and accomplish my goal. So I'm really looking forward to, getting on stage regardless, but especially because my approach to prep has been so drastically different than the last 10 years of competing. I know I didn't go into detail about what I make for